Listen to my story. This may be our last chance.
Well, hello everyone. Ogre27 Kane here today, and I think I want to do a review of Final Fantasy X HD Remaster for the Nintendo Switch. Let's do an overview and find out what this port is all about. Now, this version comes with Final Fantasy X complete on the cartridge with its DLC, but Final Fantasy X-2 comes as well as a download code with its DLC. Today, we're just reviewing Final Fantasy X though, as I believe X-2 has to be its own game and deserves its own review. So let's start out and talk about this game. So not only does this port include remastered visuals, but also a remastered soundtrack that's completely rearranged. And I absolutely adore this new soundtrack. It made the game really fresh and exciting to play again. The sounds and songs are all very familiar, but they're new in their own way. I really enjoyed this new version, as well as all the international version content that comes included on this too. So let's start out with gameplay. So the gameplay in this is the last tried and true turn-based RPG we got from Square Enix in the Final Fantasy line. It's one of a kind and pretty unique, being that it doesn't have an ATB, an active time battle system, but rather it's a truly turn-based system. Now, the agility of your characters impacts this highly in your turn order and allows you to manipulate this and strategize in this way. It also allows you to make the combat system move extremely fast and manipulate it in great strategic ways. Now, the story and the world in this game are extremely linear. This is not a very open world game, and it does not have a world map. Rather, it has a list of areas that you can go to once you've explored and a fast travel system between them. This doesn't really bother me, as in this game is very cinematic and it doesn't really depend on this, but it does have some elements that you can explore and some really cool hidden secrets if you take your time and go back. So I do highly recommend not just playing it through, but rather exploring the world. Now, because this story has all of these set pieces and the way everything is interwoven, it allows for the music to really take hold and become an emotional standpoint of the game. I think, personally, for a PlayStation 2 game, the dialogue is absolutely fantastic and the music flows well with it. It all fits in well with the story and the combat is pretty seamless. As you see here, it fades in and out fairly quickly, and it takes place on the same screen, so there's no loading between battles. So if you need to start with a Final Fantasy that has excellent gameplay and will draw you right in, I recommend this one. So let's move on to the story now. So the story in this game is absolutely fantastically written, in my opinion. The character Tidus himself starts out as kind of a whiny kid that you really don't like or understand, but then you kind of understand his plight in his world and his relationship with his father, and everything kind of fits in place. The fact that it goes from where he believes he is to where he believes he was to where he believes he's going is never really actually that relevant. There's a huge 1,000-year gap between the beginning of the game and the next hour or so that you start in it. But these are not important to the story elements until you figure out who Tidus is and what the main nemesis, Sin, actually is. The character that you're seeing here, Auron, is basically your guide in this game. He's rather your spirit leader, I should say. And really, the true relationship that develops in this game that you want to see through is Tidus and Yuna. It's not really put forth as so because you're essentially just a guardian to her as she's on a pilgrimage, a journey to stop Sin. But as you grow closer to her, you realize that the relationship and the bond between them is almost something that's imperative to keeping this world together. I love the fact that the story is written in a way that you're not aware of this until you start playing into the game and get invested in the characters themselves. On top of that, you have some other fantastic characters with Kimari, Lulu, Waka, and Riku, and they all have their own story elements and their own plot devices that you want to see through too. Riku, for example, is part of a tribe called the Al-Bhed, which is like the nomads, or rather the outcasts of this universe. And Riku holds more answers to the story than any other character, but you don't really care or need to know. So let's move on to the combat now, because I'm afraid to give away too much more. So the combat in this game is a turn-based RPG, but it's very much a very traditional turn-based RPG, is where stats like speed and agility highly affect your turn order. I love this because it allows you to manipulate the game in a sense to where you can make the combat move really fast. On top of that, this game has two unique sphere grids that allow you to change the abilities and patterns in which your characters grow. You can essentially take Tidus off on Yuna's path or Yuna off on Riku's path. It really doesn't matter in one version of the sphere grid. In the other version of the sphere grid, they have very developed skills and abilities that keep them unique and makes fighting extremely fun. You can also interchange the characters in the battle itself, so you can keep moving around your roster. You're not stuck with the same 3 in that battle. I love the fact that Final Fantasy X has such a fleshed out turn-based system, because it really shows off that at this time, they didn't know what to do with all that power, so they turned it into features for the game. And that turned into really good features, in my opinion. So the last thing I need to mention about combat is how the armor and weapons that you find can gain and lose unique abilities. This makes it so a weapon that you may perceive to be an ultimate weapon may not actually be for the setup and the abilities that you're going with. I love this because it adds another layer of variation to the combat and makes it so you want to use characters that you wouldn't normally use. On top of that, you chain them together in a really cool combo, and it makes it really fun and unique. So let's move on now to the graphics and animations. Well, I'm not going to beat around the bush. This is definitely a PS2 game, and it shows. But I think they did a really good job up-resing it to 1080p. The frame rate is extremely stable too, and there's no issues with clipping or graphics or anything like that. On top of that, the control is really responsive, and I actually prefer this version to the PS2 version. All of the new additions and updates, quality of life features have certainly made this my go-to version. And of course, with Square Enix's signature seal of quality, you can tell that they spent a lot of time on some of the smaller details, such as the water in the world and the hair on Tidus' head. At the time when I was playing this game, this was top-notch. The way that the world seamlessly integrates between cutscene into the world too was unique and new at this time. Back when this game was created, everyone was used to blocky PS1 and N64 graphics, so this pretty much shocked the world. This scene right here really sums up and epitomizes what this game created and what this game started. After this, a lot of games tried to integrate this, and Square Enix kind of pioneered it rather. But this game to me is the one I always come back to and think of a game that really showed off what a console had the ability to do. Now obviously this game's gonna look the best on a PlayStation 4 Pro with all of the bells and whistles, but considering what the Switch is, this is pretty awesome to see, and I'm glad this conversion came through so beautifully. So let's talk about the controls and audio now. So first up, we'll start with the controls. The controls in this game are what you would expect from a turn-based RPG. You have the A button to confirm, and you move around menus and whatnot. The only frustrating thing, and it's due to its time, is there's no camera control. Obviously the world and environments are fully 3D around you, and it doesn't really make sense why you can't, considering what we're used to in this day and age. But back when this game was made, they actually used these fixed environments to hide how much stuff they couldn't put into the world. A lot of these set pieces were designed around this. So, it doesn't bother me one bit. Let's talk about the audio briefly. Well, frankly, the audio is fantastic, so I'm gonna show a little piece of it off. Some music and dialogue. Here we go.
It was then, standing in that place, I began to realize how different this world was from my own. and help.
There's already guardians in there. Besides, it's forbidden.
Hey, but what if something happens? What if the summoner dies?
Our precepts must be obeyed.
Like I care. Is the summoner all right?
Who are you?
I've done it. I have become a summoner.
So in conclusion, I think this port was fantastically handled. I think that all of the quality of life improvements, the updated graphics, and the enhanced original rearranged soundtrack really stand out. Especially playing it through now, after playing it through on the PS2 and the Vita, I really think this is my favorite version. Yeah, I'm a little disappointed that I didn't get Final Fantasy X-2 on the cartridge with it, but at least I got the better of the two games in my opinion, and I love the fact that it's complete with its little expansion. Now the physical version sits at around $30 to $35 for this game. You might be able to find it new, or a used version for $20 or $25. I highly recommend picking this game up, as I do see this game as another Switch game to rise in value. As prints began to run lower and lower, I've noticed that Switch games tend to hold their value higher and higher, especially on popular franchises like this one. This was a very well done port, and I'm happy with everything they did. Thank you for watching today's video. It was a blast to make. I upload every single Monday. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, and have a great rest of your day. This is Ogre27 Kane, signing out.
You heathen!
Stay away from the summoner! You're a bad man!
Lady Yuna, be careful.
But it was really my fault to begin with. I'm Yuna. Thank you so much for your help earlier.
Huh? I'm sorry about that.
So, tomorrow then.
Tomorrow?
We're going on the same boat, aren't we?
Oh, really?
We can talk more.
Huh.
You can tell me all about Xanarkand.
But he needed our help.
Excuses again?
Yeah, but
That's it. No more. Enough, Waka.